All right, everybody.
Monday.
Ben, Feras.
Monday. Welcome back to Money Mondays. We skipped last week. Unfortunately, it's Memorial Day weekend. You have a good weekend?
Yeah, no. I mean, I
anything fun?
didn't get sunburned, which is not normal for me.
You guys don't want to see Ben get sunburned. There's a lot of red.
Yeah, I'll forget my hat most of the time, and then I'll get blazed. So, but no, it was good, man. How about you?
It was good. Just kind of a mellow catch up on life. Monday, I guess.
Yeah.
And then kind of went to a beach house over the weekend. So that was my pseudo Memorial weekend. But enough about weekends.
Let's
talk about real estate.
All right, back to business already.
Always back to business, man. That's the plan here. So for those of you watching, hopefully we figured out all the technical kinks.
We had some glitches.
We think we've got them all figured out now. So definitely, our goals. Really, we're going to go through a couple topics. So we'll go through. Really, the focus of this week is going to be just about raising money. Right, but if anyone has any questions, things like that, we'll do a big Q&A at the end. And really, the value of this is Q&A. Right, feel free to leave a comment, ask us questions, and we're literally this laptop right here. Just take a look and see what questions are being asked, and we will happily answer them live.
Absolutely.
And at some point, once I find some time, we will go figure out how to get call-in working for phone calls. But
we can technically do it. It's just we can't hear it. People can call in. We just got to get the speaker all kind of set up and everything.
We just haven't had time to do a couple more touch-ups to the studio.
And we like feedback too on the studio, right?
No,
or
absolutely.
anything, the format, the studio.
Yeah, if you guys think I'm the more entertaining one, let us know. If you think Ben is, let him. If I'm more handsome, we know. But it's kind of things like that. So definitely feel free to ask, and you could. That's what like that. But yeah, definitely feel free to ask questions. So, raising money, Ben. Have we raised any money before?
Well, we've raised a little bit. Probably a little bit between maybe 20, 22 million, somewhere in that range.
Yeah, in that range. So a couple tens of millions, I'd say.
Yeah.
Is it easy or hard?
It's definitely hard, right? And it takes some time, right? It's one of those things that people need to realize that you're not going to just go into raising $20 million, right?
Not on your first deal.
Not on your first deal.
Unless you have deep pockets.
I mean, yeah, that's cumulative, right? Amongst the 9 or 10 deals that we've done too, right? So people have to realize that there's a little bit more on some of the bigger deals, a little bit less on some of the smaller deals, that type of thing, right?
Absolutely.
So it's definitely one of those things that you have to understand, a sales process. You have to understand how to network and kind of cultivate, an investor list. And then ultimately, it really boils down to the deal in the area, right? Those will sell the deal in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah. So raising money. So definitely a couple of steps. We have a little bit of a deck that we put together, right? We're going to go through, some of the steps that it takes around raising money, but we'll kind of go over all the topics. But like Ben said, it's none of it's hard, I'd say, but there's a little bit of an art, and you have to have a plan to it, right? And if you're kind of methodical about it, just like any business system, have a plan. Define the plan, execute the plan, right?
And I always say, just people have to realize that it is a sales process, right? You're selling yourself, you're selling the deal, right?
Yeah. But before you go out there and start asking people for money, what's the first step you got to do?
You got to build your confidence up. You have to be able to talk the talk and walk the walk, right?
So you kind of show this slide right here, right?
People like confidence, right? And that goes back to even the brokers too. Not to get too sidetracked, but the brokers like people that can speak confidently and know the lingo and know the terminology, right? Because they'll sniff out a newbie, in a microsecond if they, they'll throw you a little.
Their sense of smell is very powerful.
It's very powerful, right? And a savvy passive investor is going to see the same thing. They're going to say, this person doesn't really know what they're doing, right? And then they're going to look to the team, right? Is the team strong behind this person? And is the deal strong? And if so, then they kind of weigh, do I still want to do this deal or not, right? But you have to build your confidence, you have to build your knowledge, and then you ultimately have to build your reputation in the space, right? Know your strengths. What can you offer? Some people can offer different things, right? Define what your values are, define your goals, define your mission, and then ultimately define what you're looking to go out and accomplish, right? I think it's important for people to realize that you can't just be going out there and offering your services. You have to have a defined goal and plan to say, hey, I want to go out and buy a 150 unit Class B deal in Houston, Texas. And that's what you're soft pitching to potential investors, right? This is the type of project that I'm going to be doing. And so they know once it's there that, hey, this is what I've been looking for all these 6 to 12 months.
And one thing that we always tell people, right? How do you practice with the brokers? What do we tell them to do, Ben?
Well, you want to go to a market that you're not interested in actually doing a deal in, right? Because
Ben
if
likes
you
to say
screw
go
up,
to Topeka, Kansas, a place that you don't.
I
If you're
wasn't
from
gonna-
Topeka, we
I
apologize.
wasn't going to rag on Topeka.
But
right?
pick a market that you don't necessarily have a big vested interest in, right? Where you're okay with maybe coming off a little bit noobish.
Yep.
Right. Don't waste anyone's time, but take it seriously, right? Ask the brokers questions, ask them about pricing, and hey, if it's a deal, you might actually buy from there, but really with the goal of getting experience from brokers, right? That you're learning the lingo, learning what you're doing.
And then going back to the investors too, right? You can, what I've seen a lot of people do is they have kind of a sample deal, right? Hey, this is kind of what I'm looking for. This is the box that I'm going to be in. Is this something that you would be interested in doing? And then fielding questions from there, right? Everything is about repetition and practice, right? And sales and public speaking and networking is the exact same. You have to go out there, you have to get out of your comfort zone, you have to do these things in order to ultimately feel confident that you know what you're talking about, right? And so if you have some sample deal that, hey, this is what is indicative of what I'm going to show you, then you can continue to practice and fine tune that pitch. So when you have a real deal, you're ready to go out and start crushing it, right?
No, absolutely. And so, so the goal is obviously know the lingo, know what you're talking about, to do what? Right? Talk confidently to your investors. Right?
Yeah, you have to be able to walk the walk, like we said, right? And talk the talk. So examine your current network, right? Where people usually start off with is their friends, their family, and their coworkers. That's the low-hanging fruit. Now, it's kind of a double-edged sword. I always tell people, right, you have to be even more transparent, more open about the risks to your friends, family, and coworkers, because they're really ultimately basing it on the trust of you, right? They might not know a whole lot about investing. They might not know a whole lot about multifamily or what a good return is. So they're ultimately investing in you. Mm-hmm. So you need to say, hey, mom, dad, if you're going to invest, just realize there's risks involved. Be very, very transparent, right? And you should be transparent regardless, but
be a person that people want to talk with and trust. That's a huge.
You want to get invited back to
#1
Thanksgiving
part of raising money.
Dinner as well. So you don't want to lose anybody's money first and foremost, but you certainly don't want to lose your family or your friends' money either, right? Or your coworkers, right? What if the deal goes bad and God forbid something happens, right? You got to go back to work with this person. That could be a tough situation, right? So, but people ultimately go there because it's the low-hanging fruit, right? Partner with the right people, who have the same values, goals, and criteria. I think that's important too, that, you don't want to, have a good deal but have a bad partner, right? So you have to be very, very diligent about that part of it too, right? As much as the people are underwriting and doing due diligence on the deal, they need to be doing that on their partners too, because we've seen one too many fractured partnerships in our career, where we've kind of had to step in and either take over the deal or that was what we were going to be buying. And it usually comes at a discount. So it's important to kind of know that too. But ultimately, I think where the low-hanging fruit is, where people, instead of going to your friends, families, and coworkers, really you should be out there networking.
Yeah, don't start raising money just whenever you have a deal. That's the first mistake.
You always need to be out there.
You need to be out there. You're constantly building your investor pool, right? Like we have on the screen. It's important to be, every day going out there, meeting new people, and people that might be fit. They just need to know what you're doing. Right? Yep. So later, if you do have a deal, it's not the first time you approach them. And one thing we highly recommend to people is have a CRM, have a system, take notes on investors, because the problem becomes you might have 50 people you've talked to. Whenever it comes time to raise money, you're not going to remember those 50 people. No. You're going to only remember the big ones, the ones that really stood out. But it's really important to, take notes, have conversations with people, right? Get to know them, build friendships, build relationships, right?
Yep.
You do all these things together, now you start to have what we call our investor pool.
Yep.
Then as you have a deal, right, you can go share that to your investors, you can share that to people, and it becomes a lot easier because guess what? They already know what you're doing. So now they're not wondering what is this new thing that you're pitching, right?
Yes.
And then on top of that, right, you've already warmed them up, so it's not even a cold pitch, right? And you can start to have that conversation where you're talking not about what is multifamily, but it's really, hey, we already know you do multifamily. We already know what multifamily is. Tell me what makes this deal so awesome.
Yeah.
Right. And that's
get right back to the specifics at that point, right? You can get past all the high level stuff and get right to the nitty gritty. But yeah, one thing that that I always kind of point out to people too is it's all about the follow up as well, right? You go to all these events, you get a bunch of business cards, you take them and then you put them in your drawer, right? Not only should you put them in a CRM, right, but you need to follow up with those people. You need to build those relationships, right? And that's not just going to be a, hey, it was great meeting you at so-and-so event, let's keep in touch. That's probably not enough if you really want to raise money from somebody. unless you maybe have a really, really good reputation, maybe they know you for other people and they were referred over to you, something like that. Somebody else is vouching for you already, then they might be able to get comfortable with you pretty quickly. But somebody right off the street, maybe somebody that's new to the industry, you're gonna have to cultivate that rapport. Yeah. Right?
Ben loves to basically walk the streets and identify people. That guy looks like an investor. That guy looks like an investor. And start cultivating those relationships, right?
No, don't ever judge a book by its cover, though, either, right? The richest guy and gal in the room are usually the folks that you wouldn't expect.
That's actually a very, very true statement. But yeah, to Ben's point, don't judge a book by its cover. But again, it goes back to the basics of be genuine, be transparent. Let people know what you're doing. Right?
Absolutely.
And so then it just kind of comes off a lot easier a little bit later.
So what's step number 3?
Step number 3 is actually, you understand the business, you started to talk to your people about what it is. Well, now it's, hey, you have a deal. Now it's time to go out there and raise your money for that deal.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And again, for those that are maybe just tuning in, right, we try to do these every Monday around the same time. Please feel free to ask questions live. We will answer them here live for you all.
And it doesn't have to be about the topic either, folks, right? Like it could be investing in general. What do you think of the market? It doesn't have to necessarily be multifamily. Doesn't necessarily have to be about what we're talking about.
Ask us about Ben's hair. We'll talk about it.
You don't want to hear that. You don't want to hear that story, all right?
Oh, you're wearing a nice shirt there. I like the shirt. Good job. Disrupt Equity shirt. He's representing. I'm representing the blue. He's representing the green.
Well, it's Mondays, so I thought we were doing the show.
I should have worn the shirt. I didn't think
dropping the ball over here, right?
I'm the slacker.
So, all right. So you're raising money for the deal. Let's kind of talk maybe a little bit high level. What does that look like, right? You've got a deal. You've built the rapport. You got your investor pool. Now what?
The very first thing is figure out who you can talk to first.
Okay.
Right? There's a lot of SEC laws. Please kind of understand what a 506C, 506B is and what you're doing for your specific deal. But, assuming you're talking to the right investors, there's an art to talking to the investors, right?
Yep.
But first and foremost, if you're doing a 506C, you can go get ads and do whatever you want. 506B, it's a lot more restrictions. So caveat that, please kind of understand the legal aspects. We're not attorneys. We're not going to go dig into that for you all. But, it's really now you have the deal, like you said, have the plan, right? Mm-hmm. Start to figure out what makes that deal hum, right? What is getting you excited about that deal, right? What about that deal makes it stand out above the rest? And can you show a clear path to implementing that business plan, right? Are you trying to show $500 rent pops, which is kind of crazy, but hey, if the deal next door and, maybe you can get it. Yep. But really you need to explain the what and explain the how. Right, it's kind of the two big things.
But where do you do that? Do you do that? I always tell people, regardless if you're going to do a webinar, regardless if you're going to do an email blast, it's always good to have an investor deck.
Yeah,
right.
We typically do a full-blown investor deck.
Yeah, that's going to explain that business plan and that exit strategy. I think that's important, and I think that people should practice doing that. Like I said, prior to even having a deal, right? Just put a sample one together because it's really the more fit and finish that these things kind of come off as, the more sophisticated and more experienced you're going to look like, right? So if you have something that's, Word document with a bunch of bullet points and, it's not well put together, people are going to just think that you're an amateur, right? So you really need everything that you put out there from an email to an investor deck needs to be polished and read over and make sure that it makes sense from, the flow, but also just looks professional.
Yeah, it's important. It's important because, again, how you pitch is representative of how you are. And ultimately, one thing to kind of know, and you could ask an investor this, most investors are investing not because of the deal and what you told them, but they're really betting on you. And so it's important to be, show that you know what you're doing and you're not going to go out there and make mistakes with their money, right? Yeah. And so, but like Ben said, put together that deck, go through the presentation, and then from that, right, start to identify who to follow up with, right? It's probably the next best step. You can kind of send out your email, but really, there needs to be great, we talked about it, but now let's start to get the closing, right? And now you're not closing the deal, you're closing the investors.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And so from that, it's, every deal's different, right? If it's a huge deal, you might need to actually be proactive and go out there and follow up with investors and figure out who's interested and who's not. For us, we do use tools, right? So we can see who opened the email multiple times, who clicked on links, right? You can start to get an idea of who might be interested and who might not be interested in that deal. Right, and then from that, figure out, okay, we know who's interested. Let's go have a conversation with that person. Let me send that person an email. Oh, that person, I'm going to see him next week. You might, talk through it. And so it's really having that initiative and that plan to get that executed. So
one thing that I always tell people too, just a suggestion, folks, is that you don't want to look at it like you're selling them on something, right? You're selling them on the dream, right? No, you're doing them a favor. Right? You're bringing them an opportunity for them to build up their nest egg, to get great returns. These are very tight-knit investments, right? There's not thousands and thousands of people on this. There might be dozens, right? So, slots are limited. You're bringing it to this person because, hey, I like you, I know you, I trust you. I think this is a great investment. I'm going to tell you why, right? I want you on board, right? And then, once you kind of change your mindset about it, right? Asking people for money becomes easier.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the biggest hang up for people that are new to the industry is, I just don't want to come off as some slimy sales guy or gal, right? And I get it.
And
right?
it's not about being slimy either. That's the important thing.
You just get this mentality that like, oh, you're asking them for a favor, right? They're doing me a favor. No, you're doing them a favor, right? So as long as you can twist your mindset that way in that direction, then it'll be a lot easier to go out and actually do this, right? But we do webinars that are based on our investor decks. We also send out emails, but each sponsorship group is different. People have different ways of doing things. Some people don't do webinars. We prefer to do it. I'm going to tell you why, folks, because we like being able to do the Q&A. The Q&A is important, and we've learned a lot of stuff just based on what's important to people based on the questions that they ask us, right? And then that might tweak how we market it for the rest of the raise. So, and people will point out good things that we didn't even realize about the deal, right? So that's an important thing that allows you to be, once again, another touch point with your investors is that webinar, right? Yes. But even beyond that, because that can still be a little bit impersonal, Feras pointed out a good thing is you should have a follow-up list after the webinar, right? Because you should have a list of all the people that were on the webinar, maybe the people that were most engaged, and you should personally reach out to them. Not an email blast, a personal email, or set up a call and you talk to them directly and say, hey, I noticed that you're on. I noticed you're asking some great questions. I want to, can I have 10, 15 minutes of your time just to answer the remainder of your questions and get you on board?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to pause you really quick. So for those people that are just tuning in, what are we talking about?
Talking about raising equity for deals, right? So some of the best practices, some of the tips, some of the tricks, some of the stuff that we've done that we've been successful. Once again, we've raised over $20 million, right? So it's not our first rodeo.
Probably not the best at it at all.
No,
we're
not.
There's still people much better, but
we ultimately consider ourselves probably more the operators, right? But as part of what we do as being sponsors, we have to raise money. But we're trying to kind of pull back the onion a little bit. There's multiple layers of how to do this and how to do it right.
And so to continue on though, since a big part of what we're doing is answering questions live. So if you have questions, please ask them. But let's answer the first one.
Okay, what do you got?
Right, from Ronnie, our buddy Ronnie, our friend Ronnie.
Hey, Mr. Ronnie.
How's it going, Ronnie? So how do you network without going to meetups and conferences with the current events going on?
It's a good question, man. Yeah, I mean, obviously the networking and the conferences, that's all changed in the last 2 or 3 months, right? Unfortunately, I think ultimately...
We had probably 10 events planned out between March and
we had
July.
We had our conference that was supposed to be coming up in a couple of weeks. But bottom line, yes, I don't believe that this is going to be the new normal. I think it's going to be the new normal for a couple more months, right? But I think ultimately, if we can get out of the COVID's behind us and we can all kind of get back to, business as usual, you're going to get into more of those traditional networking events. But for right now, you got to go even farther.
It's doing what we're doing right now, right? Yeah. I mean, the beautiful thing is that we are in an age where data and, connections are really easy to make, right? And so it's getting on, for social media, for better or for worse, right? It's got its own pros and cons. But, getting out there, attending the virtual meetups. There's a lot of virtual meetups, right? Go to multifamilymasters.com. There's a ton of events going on, right?
Yep.
There's, getting out there and basically figuring out who's in your space that you're doing and interacting with them. There's forums, like we mentioned Bigger Pockets before.
Yep.
Talk to people, but not just talk to them in a public setting, right? Take that conversation into a private one-on-one. Because the benefit, right? So there's one way to look at it as there's not a lot of conferences, events going on, therefore I can't network. The flip side of that is actually there's a lot more people with a lot more time on their hands.
Yeah.
So I've had a lot of people reach out and want to talk one-on-one, right?
Yeah.
And so it's a different kind of dynamic, but you can actually have a little bit more of that personal connection with people and talk to them and understand, and get to know them, right? You're networking and learning about them and they're learning about you and, you have a couple of recurring calls or, and next thing you know, well, this person likes, knows, and trusts you and maybe partner together, maybe invest together, whatever that looks like. So
no, and we love Zoom, right? Bottom line, there's so many technologies that we were already using prior to COVID that are now becoming mainstream, and it's an excellent way. Even if you have a one-on-one investor call with them, right? Get a glass of wine, even if it's at 6 o'clock at night. You're just networking, but it's virtually. Now, it might not have 100% of the effect, right? but you can still make things, work even in this environment because technology is so great. Now, if we were 100 years ago, it would have been a little bit tougher, right?
Yeah, all we send you send a letter in the mail, and about
it's
3
2
weeks
weeks to
later.
get back.
No, 2 weeks is fast. 100 years ago, it's not that fast, man.
All right, 2 months, 2 months.
Yeah.
But luckily now we got Zoom, you got Skype, we got cell phones.
Yeah, and don't be
makes it
scared. I
easier.
mean, one thing I want to stress to people, like some people that might be nervous getting on a video call, learn to get over it, right? Especially if you're learning to raise money. I mean, it's an important thing. And most people are just as nervous as you. If you know that going in, people stop worrying about it, right?
I like that
Learn to be comfortable with people, right?
I like that even as a networking tip too, man. You brought up a good point, right? The person that you're scared to walk up to, they're probably just as petrified as you are, right? I still sweat when I go to these networking events, right? It's not it's not natural sometimes for people unless you got a drink or two in you, right? So sometimes you got to get out of your comfort zone and you just got to do it, right? And just be genuine with people. People can see, transparency and genuineness a mile away, right? Versus trying to kind of go up there and try to sell them and sound like you got more experience than you really do, right? Because they might be new to this too. So just be genuine and open with people, and people like that.
Yeah, for sure. So again, if anyone has any questions, please ask them. We're going to answer them here in the next minute or two, so don't hesitate. Again, maybe this is a good first step. If you're nervous about talking to people, ask a question discreetly inside of a thing, and we can give you a shout out or not give you a shout out, right? We're happy to. And so, definitely let us know. But really, anything else, Ben? Any other?
No, I think, things have a little bit changed, right? But I think ultimately, because of technology, you can still ultimately do what you need to do, which is build relationships with people, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to just do it by sending an email blast, especially somebody that you've only met once at a networking event 6 months ago. They might not remember you. You probably don't remember them. So you have to do your best to build up that rapport, because that's the only time people are going to give you money. They have to like, know, and trust you. I can't stress that enough. So you got to find ways to do that even in COVID.
That's very true.
All right.
Anyone else have any more questions?
We're gonna make this more interactive, folks. I want some more Q&A.
Yeah, we're gonna set up call-in, not next time, but the one after that. That's my goal.
All right, it's on him if he doesn't get it done.
And even if I have to hold the headphone to my ear and I'm just gonna be the only one hearing the caller and Ben's not, we're gonna figure it out. So,
there we go.
We'll get that done.
And suggestions too. If there's topics that you guys want to hear about, we'd love to hear that. We'd love to hear feedback on how we're doing, how the studio looks, anything else that we can do to improve this. We want to add value, to folks and see how we can kind of help everybody grow, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, all right.
All right, if anyone has any more questions, ask them now or forever hold your peace.
Going once, going twice.
Anyone?
Anybody? All right.
All right,
We'll be back
then.
next Monday.
Monday.
Mondays.
Monday. See you guys.
All right, thank you.